This is Sherry Hayes with MomDelights.com, Mom of 15, homeschooling since 1989. And I love the Lord, and He is the reason why I homeschool. He's the one who helps me with everything. So recently I talked to you about the McGuffey readers, and I was going to go through, I promised that I would listen to you if you wanted me to address each one, trying to give an idea of how to do a lesson in the McGuffey readers. So I'm going to start today. We're going to start with the Brown set, which is the 1830s versions of the McGuffey readers that were the ones that were done originally by McGuffey, William Holmes McGuffey himself. And I'm going to show you if you buy the set, this is going to be the first book that you will see, and it's called Eclectic Primer. And I know that sounds weird because I used to always say primer, but it's primer. It's P-R-I-M-E-R. And it begins with the alphabet and goes through. This is something that I really haven't used extensively, except maybe to introduce my children to how reading works. Maybe read underneath a word or a sentence. Maybe try a few things here and there. But this, to me, I can see why this was necessary back in the day when they didn't have a nice public library with lots of books available. So this is something that just said little kids, they probably actually taught kids how to read with it, but in our distracted age, it's not really that understandable. However, when you get to the pictorial Eclectic Primer, things change. Now, before you can start teaching a child to read, a child has to understand basic English language. My suggestion are two things. First of all, that a child be read lots of nursery rhymes. Nursery rhymes build a foundation of cadence and structure and everything in an early child's mind. Okay, and then the next thing is to read lots of fairy stories, such as Cinderella and Snow White and all those important ones. Then the next step is to just read aloud everything. Check out lots of books from the library and just read and read and read. So those are three different things. I said two, but three things. And then the next thing would be to familiarize your child with the alphabet sounds. Not necessarily the letters by name, but by sound. I know we sing the song A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and that's important too. But in order to learn to read, you need the phonics sounds, and you need to have something that will help you practice the phonics sounds and then putting those sounds together to make words. Now, there is a book called Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons that actually teaches you how to teach them, which is really nice to have. And also, I'm familiar with a book, An Acorn in My Hand, which it's a new discovery for me, but I really love that book. So what I did is I took the ideas from those two books and from other sources, and I developed my own little phonics program, which you can download for free on my blog, MomDelights.com. And those things are important. You have to get your child familiarized with all the basic phonics sounds, and you have to teach them how to sound out basic words. Now, when we're teaching how to read, we have the CVC and all those, it means consonant, vowel, consonant. So don't let that freak you out. Then you learn the basic words, how to tell whether a word is going to be a short voweled word or a long voweled word, and on like that. Now, once you get going in that, you don't have to be that far into it, but basically sounding out, then you can start introducing your child to this book, which is the pictorial Eclectic Primer. Can you see that? This is by far superior to the Eclectic Primer in that it starts teaching your child how to sound out and enjoy simple sentences in a logical progression that is very gentle, but also is very thorough and repeats a lot. So the first lesson 1, as you can see, it says, is it an ox? So what I'm doing with my child is I'm saying, okay, well, let's sit down, honey, and let's have some fun reading. And I'm going to offer a snack and some cuddles, if they like that. And then I'm going to help them sound these words out, right? Little by little, we're just going to add increment by increment by increment. And so we're going to, and if we are successful in the first day of sounding these words out, it's going to be a banner day. Now, in this book, the word spelling, and when they talk about spelling, they don't mean to spell it like IS. What they're talking about is sounding out. They called spelling what we call sounding out. So first I'm going to have my child sound these out. Then I might give it a break a day. You know, just because it's on the same page doesn't mean you have to do it all in the same day. Then we might come back and we will review these sound out words, and we will come and we will start reading. This is for reading, and say, oh, look, we sounded it out. Now you can read a whole sentence, and we're clapping and we're hooraying and we're so excited. Then on the second page, there are more spelling or sounding out areas. There's one here and one here, 2 areas. And here's another reading session. Now you could possibly make 3 lessons out of this 1 lesson. And that would be fine. And every day you could feel so accomplished that you actually read some sentences. Now you might have one that's like, can do it, and it's like, nothing, and it's boring, and they want to move on. Hey, move on, do 3 or 4 lessons a day. It's however much your child can handle. So then you're going to go on to this page. Now this page builds on what we've learned previously, and now it's adding short A and my. So if you follow my phonics program, you would already be familiar with most of this, so that this would be a breeze for your child. I really recommend that you try that. So here is lesson 2. And so you'll be reading this. Now lesson 2 has actually 3 pages of reading. And as I said before, if your child is going through this like a knife through butter, then go ahead and do all of the parts of the lesson. If not, take 1 part at a time. And if you have the next day, go back over what you previously done and add something new. And then go back the 2 things you've done the next day and add page 3. And then you're building. Also remember, even though these are kind of crude pictures, little kids understand them. And you can talk about the picture. Ask them what the little boy is doing. Ask him what may be happening on each page. What do you think is going to happen? And build them up in their ability to express themselves verbally, because, you know, it's all about communication, isn't it? It's just written communication. So here is a lesson that's split up into 2 pages, and it's just little descriptive sentences about pictures. Well, you could do as many of these as your child will handle per day. You could do them all in 1 day, however it works for you. Now, for those who feel comfortable writing and drawing, you could use something like this. And, well, what I used to do when I first started is I just got a composition book that had the dotty lines, you know, the primary lines. And what I would do is I would draw a square, and next to this square I would write a word that was from this lesson, such as, and I even wrote the is words and stuff like that, because believe it or not, they like that too. I would write it is an ox down the side of the paper, and they would have to copy that, and I would make sure that I colored the bottom line, or bottom part of the dotty line, so they would know how to write it. And then I would write ox too, and then I would have a square. They could draw a picture for each of them. Now my kids love to draw, so this was fun for them. Maybe it will be a stretch for your child. Maybe that won't be the funnest thing. Or maybe you could take this right here, copy it, cut it out, paste it on there. There's a cut and paste thing you could stick on there, whatever you want to do. What I have done in recent years is I developed pages that my child could use so that I didn't have to work so hard. When you have a lot of kids, it's hard to do all that work. So what I did was I took and I developed pages where I could simply write the word from our lesson here and have a place for them to copy it and a place to make a picture. This made everything easier. So for this first book especially, you see, I sell these on Amazon, and I also have the free sheets for download, and I can put the link below. So what happens is you put the title and everything, you do this writing for them, and they start writing the words and drawing the pictures. You don't have to do this with lesson 1. If they aren't comfortable writing or drawing yet, you can move on, but you'd be surprised how little a little child can be when they want to write and draw something. So here I have a place, and this is the beta version, so these pages would be switched in the one you'll buy. But here's a place for some copy work. Maybe in the subsequent lessons I will show you, there are going to be sentences and paragraphs. And so what you can do, like right here, is you can write these sentences. You can even write, here's a trick, write these sentences with highlighter and have your child go over the highlighter with a pencil. Now they're writing, and they're writing whole words and sentences, but they're not having to work so hard and struggle so hard to try to make it look like the picture and do all that coordinating. This simplifies it for them, and it's something you can do in just a few minutes, just a sentence or two for them. And so as you go along in this book, you will notice that the lessons will have sentences and pictures, and this is common theme throughout most of the book. And you can see it continues on through here. Here's lesson. Now these lessons are in Roman numerals, so this is lesson 19. And we're going to, and all of a sudden we switch. Now we have a list of words and sentences to go with it. So we will be using the lesson book or the sheets or whatever you might use. These are the words we sound out before we read the sentences. Of course, we're going to talk about the picture first. We're going to read the sentences. We're going to talk about the picture first. We're going to read the words aloud, sound them out, and we're going to read the sentences, and we're going to find that these sentences talk about this picture, and it's going to be a little bit of a story happening. And so when we use the lesson book, of course, now we have our words to write in the spaces, and we have some sentences for copy work. There is also a place for some dictation. Now this is when it gets interesting. At first, maybe the dictation can still happen, but in a very gentle way. This is not in a schoolish way, like, okay, you should know this word. Why don't you know this word? If they don't know the word, help them out. What you want to do in this stage is make them feel so confident and so happy about what they're doing that they'll want to do more. So when you're doing a dictation, let's say that your words are ox, kit, bag. What you're going to say is they say, oh, I can't remember. I say, well, just put a K. And you can teach them and say, it's just like this. And you can even write it for them so they can, whatever help they need. This dictation is really sort of loose and informal, but it gives them an idea that maybe they could write words too. Down here, what you're going to do is you're going to have them draw about the lesson. Now the first lessons, really the sentences sometimes don't always go together, but the picture is enough, and sometimes they will want to draw something about what they've read or what the picture is. Even so, my children did. It was really amazing to me. But what you want to do, all you're doing here is you're giving them lots of opportunity to reinforce all those good words and that good language that they're learning. So as you go through this book, now we've shown that the lessons all of a sudden have the words and they have the paragraph. Some lessons are going to be total words. Well, that's okay too. Maybe for a copy work, you'll make up some sentences from the words. Maybe they can help you make up the sentences and have a lot of fun doing that. So you'll do that. Let me see if I can find, oh, here's an example. In this lesson, all it is words. But the really cool thing is they follow a really neat pattern. In this lesson, it's going to be cock, rock, back, hack, flock. See all the CK words? And isn't that wonderful? This is so phonics-based that it's hard to mess up with this book. So anyway, so you have those, and you can talk to them about the patterns that they see. And this one, it's setter, better, hatter, matter, play, tray, bray, stray. So they're learning all of these words, and you can, it's so rich, and you can talk about, oh, this is a stray dog. That's why they have this word stray here. And you can talk about stray dogs for a few minutes. And then they can, when they do their picture, they can draw a picture of what they think a stray dog, or a story they can make up in their minds about a stray dog who found someone to love him. And so, and some of this is kind of antiquated, like they call this is a rooster, but they call it a cock. So we need to like bring them and to talk to them about this quaintness and how words have changed, their meanings have changed over time. And here is a horse and a whole bunch of words, and on the other side, then there is the lesson story part. So that's getting more complicated. And you can say, oh, look at this. There's a whole page of the story. Do you realize how much you're reading now? And you can say, look at the beginning. Look, you were only reading like this, and now you're reading a whole page. Isn't that exciting? And you can get so excited together. And, and so the words will progress gradually through. And you'll be going all the way through. Here are some words at the end, you see, which is really neat. And you can just have fun. And at the end, then, you will have a little message about, well, this isn't the one. But anyway, this, look how long this is by the end of this book. So you could say, so you could say that this one book actually helps you go from barely reading to now we're reading on a first grade level. Look at this. And it's only in one little book. So you get like kindergarten through first grade in one little book. And this lesson book, I've forgotten how many pages. Let's see. I think that there must be enough. There are 129 pages for some odd reason. Anyway, I think that there might be enough for maybe 30 lessons in here, maybe less. So you might have to have 2 of these to finish out a whole one of these, or you could also, towards the end, graduate to the second lesson book. And this, in the newer versions, I have dotty lines instead of just a solid line here, but this is set up to where as your child begins to draw and write better, that you could use this book for towards the end of that one. And I hope you understand that these books cover more than one grade. This was done by my little girl, and so she used this with a second reader. But you can see I would write the words. Oh, this is a lesson, yeah. Yeah, she kind of didn't understand, so she wrote the words right next to my words here, if you can see. But in general, what we did, and she learned, well, she did that over and over again. But here's some copy work she did, and here's a picture. And actually, we learned through that book with the second reader. The first reader. Maybe it was the second reader. But the first reader follows along as the primer did. And it starts very gently. The new book. Here is John. But here, the words are at the end of the lesson. So we want to put these words and help our child to write these words. And then we're going to read this part of the lesson. Here's another lesson. This has a lot of writing, some pictures. This is totally different, isn't it? It's like a practice lesson, but it doesn't necessarily have any words at all. Well, when that happens, just pick out some words from here to practice with, and then just use the copy work and the narrative drawing and the dictation that you would like. Here's lesson 3. You can see it's a lot like lesson 2. Here's lesson 4 with the words at the back of the lesson. Here's lesson 5 with the words at the back of the lesson. Now, when we're going to this stage, I'm going to be taking these words and I'm going to be teaching them different patterns. I'm going to be talking to them about words and like the hard word like R. And I'm going to, not so much at this stage, but as we go along, I do that more and more. I point things out to them to help them to spell and recognize words. So here's another lesson with the words at the back. And this pattern pretty much goes along. This is a real sweet story. Poor old man about being kind. These stories have so much moral significance. It's wonderful. And so here's something that we see, this word something. It's a 2-clap word or a 2-syllable word, but we call them claps. And here, look at this list. Whoa. Now the lists are getting longer. That's why it's best to use this level of book. Because as the word lists get longer, you need more spaces to write the words. Now, what I would do when I was in this level and we're writing words and we're doing all this, I split up the lesson into parts. Because young people especially, they don't need to be sitting all day doing one lesson a day. That's overload. So for one day, they will be just copying. Well, for one day, we'll just be reading, sounding out and reading. The next day, they can copy the words. The next day, they can do some copy work and maybe draw. And then the last day, they can do some dictation, maybe make a sentence or two, a very simple sentence with the words they've learned, and do some drawings to illustrate the words. My daughter here, she didn't write the words down. It's not perfect, right? But here we go. Here, this is steer, fish, and well. Here's a well, if you can see the well. So, split things up. If your child is not comfortable making sentences yet, you can suggest some sentences and help them work on that. So this is what I would use for most of the first reader, which is this one, and for the most of the second reader. Now, the first reader, what you will notice is that pretty much it follows that same pattern of lesson, words in the back, all the way through, and things will get bigger and longer. And by the end of the first reader, they are going to be reading quite a lot and not so many pictures, which isn't a bad thing. So it's 3 pages for this lesson with some words, and the words you can see are a little challenging, and that's fine because now they're getting into the 3rd grade level, right? And so this is at least the beginning of the 3rd grade level, so you can see this goes through a little bit of maybe the high 1st, 2nd, getting into the 3rd grade. Then enter the 2nd reader. This is one of my favorite readers of all. This one, of course, will be starting. These, you see, we've increased in complexity, right? Here, the long list of words. We have, the print is smaller, right? And this is gradually going to increase. This is when I start concentrating on learning about syllabication, prefixes, and suffixes. And I talk to them about words that follow patterns and words that don't follow patterns. And we talk like the suffix ing, ing, we talk about prefixes. We try to do compound words. I talk to them about compound words. I talk to them about pluraling, plurals. We talk about I before E except after C, or in things that say A as in neighbor and way. We talk about building a spelling vocabulary in their minds. We talk about that. And these stories are also, there aren't that many pictures, but they're very moral, and they talk about the Lord, and they're evangelistic, and oh, they're so fun. And so here we go. By the end of this,
You're cuter.
okay, I'm recording. So by the end, we're really kind of like 6th grade level. I mean, no, I don't know. Maybe high 5th. And with McGuffey, you see, you're just getting a lot of vocabulary, a lot of really good. And now we're introducing poetry, so that's good. After this second reader, I don't do the third original. It makes too much of a leap. It's too hard for them to leap from this to the third. And the third, it's kind of serious subjects. Kids back then had to deal with a lot of things like death and all kinds of stuff. And so, a little too much. I think for my kids, what I like to do then is go to the third of these, which are the revised. And I like to then continue on in the same vein with the words at the end. And, you know, this has a lot of poetry. The stories in here are so amazingly interesting. But at this point, you know, pretty much I am about halfway through this book. I stop making them read to me. I should go over that again, shouldn't I? So when I'm in this book, I am having them read these words aloud to me. We will sit and we will read all the words aloud. Then I'll talk about the different patterns. Then they will read the lesson to me. So I make sure that they're understanding how to pronounce, that they're not missing things, all that type of stuff. And I'm going to do that until about, I'd say, until we start getting into the animals. They start talking about animals and things, about the story about the lark and the farmer. Then they usually say, "Mom, I'm not a little kid," and you know. So then I'm letting them read on their own the lessons and copy the words on their own. And then I'm turning them loose. Then they can do it on their own. So by the time we're in the third eclectic reader, then they're pretty much on their own, doing their own thing. Now this is when it's probably a good idea to give them level 3. Level 3 can be used also with advanced learners and level 2. You can start this with level 2. In fact, I'm doing that with my daughter. We're in the latter half of the second reader, and she's going to be in this because I made lots and lots of lines for those long vocabulary lists. And there is a place for word doodles, and there's a place for sentences, and there's more room for your sentences because by this point you should be making sentences pretty well. There's copy work, and there's a place for a narrative drawing, there's a place for dictation, and there's plates for lesson doodles, just whatever they want. Now, part of the reason I do not include written narration at this age is because Charlotte Mason doesn't recommend it. They're doing pretty well at this point, but they're just not confident enough to start writing narrations on their own. Well, anyway, so I've taken you through this, and I probably should stop this video and make another one just so it doesn't take too long. So I hope you like and subscribe and wait for the next video coming out. Thank you. Bye-bye.